Hello, everybody. Today we're going to do a tier ranking for the 2024 Republican vice presidential candidates. So I got on Tier Ranker. This has a good amount of candidates. Nothing is perfect, but right now all signs are pointing to Donald Trump being the nominee. So we're going to assume these running mates are for Trump. So I've got tiers A, B, C, D, and F. I don't do an S or a Z tier. A through F, everybody's familiar with that. And none of these are going to be what I want to see or not see happen. This is going to be a combination of who I think is most likely to be selected and who I think would work well enough for Trump on the ticket. So let's get started. First, we've got Marjorie Taylor Greene. And do I think she would be picked? No, I don't. If she was picked, do I think she would help Trump? Also, no, I don't. I think she's just too controversial. The barrage from the media would be nonstop. She is from Georgia. That's kind of an important state, but her district is so red, and I don't think her appeal would resonate with voters nationwide. She's too similar to Trump. So I think she's not likely to be picked, and I think she would probably bring down the ticket. I'm going to actually put her all the way at the bottom in the F tier. Next, Nancy Mace, another representative, this time from South Carolina. Trump was rooting for her defeat in the primary last time, and Mace did pull through, and I think it's unlikely for Mace to be picked. She doesn't have a high enough profile and hasn't won anything statewide, but if she did get picked, I think she would be a little bit more moderate to help balance out Trump. If you're into the identity politics, some people think you can't have the same race and the same sex on the same ticket. Personally, I don't care about that at all, but maybe you think a woman would help Trump. I could see Mace having some success and not overshadow Trump. Maybe that would help him in the suburbs. I'm going to actually put her in the C tier, although I don't think it's likely she would be picked. Next, we've got Brian Kemp, governor of Georgia. He's a well-known high-ranking official from a key swing state, but he's got some time left to serve as governor, and I'm not sure how much appeal Kemp would have nationwide. I think it's pretty unlikely he'd be picked, and probably a more mediocre pick if he were the running mate. I'm going to put him in the D tier. Next, that is Elise Stefanik, another congresswoman from upstate New York. It's not completely unlikely she'll be picked. She doesn't have an extremely high profile, but I think she's aligned herself enough with Trump and hasn't been branded as completely crazy, but her lack of a statewide win, I think, holds her back, but I think that's going to be good enough for the C tier as well, probably the high C tier. We'll say Mace is on the low C tier. Next, we've got Francis Suarez, mayor of Miami, and Suarez, he's not really on board the Trump train. At first, I don't even think he was on board the DeSantis train. He is from a major city, but Florida, it's not really on the map anymore as a pivotal battleground. Trump already seems like he's going to do pretty well in South Florida. Suarez might be able to help him in other parts of the country, maybe Arizona, maybe South Texas. So there are some advantages with Suarez. He also seems like kind of a nice enough guy. He wouldn't be viewed as too crazy, and he wouldn't overshadow Trump. I'm going to also actually put Suarez in the C tier. Next, we've got Glenn Youngkin, governor of Virginia. I think it's pretty unlikely Youngkin gets picked. He's still got another year or two left as governor, and Youngkin might want to make his own run for president at some point. Being a running mate is not necessarily the worst thing, but I don't know how Youngkin from a blue-leaning state, and he's not even from the Rust Belt, would do a whole lot for Trump. I think Youngkin would have to constantly keep answering for everything Trump says, and I don't see that really panning out well for Youngkin. So I think it's very unlikely, but if he was picked, it would be an all-right choice. We're going to put that next to Kemp in the D tier. Next, Kristi Noem, governor of South Dakota. Her name is bandied about as one of the most likely candidates to be picked, so that already puts her up a couple of tiers. Personally, I don't think she's that strong of a running mate. I always thought she came off as a little bit in the Sarah Palin direction, but she did win re-election by a wider margin than expected in 2022. She is fairly young, maybe that helps, but South Dakota, that's not really known as a swing state, so I don't think Trump would gain a whole lot by picking Noem. So I'm going to put her also in the C tier. Maybe she's even the front runner, but I just don't think she would really add that much. Next, we've got Byron Donalds, congressman from Florida, and he's made a name for himself a little bit in the Trump wing. Nationally, people aren't going to know who he is. He's probably more of a rising star within the GOP. Maybe someday he runs for governor or for the Senate. He's also young, he speaks well. There could be another youth appeal there, but I don't think he's going to be picked, and I don't think he would be that strong at this point if he were on the ticket. So I'm going to put Byron Donalds in the D tier. Next, Kari Lake. And I think if Lake were on the ticket, voters would just think there's way too much Trump. She is a Trump loyalist. She doesn't have any electoral success under her belt, but she's not afraid to go up against the media. She's got a lot of energy, but I think she would be viewed as too controversial, and I also think it's pretty unlikely she would be picked. I'm going to put her in the D tier. Next, Kim Reynolds, governor of Iowa. Yes, we already know that she has endorsed Ron DeSantis in the primary. It doesn't mean she can't be picked for VP later on. And I think Reynolds is a better pick than Noem if you're looking for female governors. Maybe it's just me, but Reynolds to me comes off as less goofy than Noem. Plus, Iowa is a little bit more of a significant state, even though it's gotten a lot redder over the past decade. Plus, Reynolds' popularity might not be as strong as it used to be. Probably wouldn't matter by the time Election Day rolled around. So it does not seem likely she'd be picked at this point, but I don't think she'd be too bad if she was. I'm going to put her also next to Kristi Noem there in the C tier. Next, look at this. We've got Nikki Haley, everybody's favorite. She's either going to save the Republicans or she's Dick Cheney in heels. She is polling well right now. I think that would come down once a general election happened. She's pretty much pure establishment. She has been critical of Trump, but I think she could walk it back if she were picked as his running mate. And a lot of the base does not like Nikki Haley, so it seems like she would not be picked. But at the same time, I didn't think Trump would pick Pence. He did. He could pick Haley. And maybe voters think she's stronger than I do. That's a possibility. So I'm going to try to even it all out. We'll throw her up here in the C tier. Next, Joni Ernst, U.S. Senator from Iowa. So another statewide official from Iowa. I think Ernst is a little bit better than Kim Reynolds. She's a little bit younger. She's got the military background. She could have some suburban appeal. She does seem a lot less controversial than a lot of these other candidates. So I think she's actually kind of likely to be picked, at least relative to these other candidates, who I think have a small or no chance to be picked. Plus, if she had to free up her seat in the U.S. Senate, there's not a high risk that seat would flip. So for those reasons, I'm actually going to put her just above these other ones. We'll get somebody up here in the B tier. Next, we've got Sarah Huckabee Sanders, governor of Arkansas. She's got close ties to Donald Trump. She's young. She's won statewide. It's not a purple state, but maybe this is unfair. I do think her southern accent would actually be viewed as a liability. Also, I don't really think she has much charisma. Again, maybe that's just me, but I think that's another drawback. Also, I think it's unlikely she would be picked. We're going to put her in the D tier. Next, it looks like that is Katie Britt, the new U.S. Senator from Alabama. I didn't know she was up for consideration. She's already from a red state. She just got into the Senate. Let's give her some time to build up a track record. Yes, her youth could help, but I don't think anybody knows who she is. I think it's too much of an outside-the-box pick, and that means she's going to go in the D tier. Next, it's Governor Ron DeSantis of Florida. And maybe 6 months to a year ago, it seemed like Trump could pick DeSantis. That might be a good team. DeSantis was popular at the time. Then he tried to go toe-to-toe with Trump. It's pretty much been all downhill from there. Now, governor of Florida, that is an important position. He's got 2 terms under his belt, including a landslide win, but the state is not as important as it used to be. Plus the conflict now between Trump and DeSantis, I think it's very unlikely he would be picked. If he did pick him, I think they'd be able to patch it up well enough, but that is going to go down in the D tier. Next, we've got Tim Scott, and Scott already dropped out of the race. And personality-wise, I've always thought Scott comes off as a genuine, sincere type of guy. He's non-threatening, he's maybe a little bit boring, but he does show some energy once he gets going. South Carolina, it's not a swing state, but Scott has not been overly critical of Trump, so he hasn't burned that bridge. Again, if you're into the identity politics, maybe he balances out the ticket in some way that you find to be satisfying. Maybe he helps black turnout by a point or two. He probably would do well with evangelicals. Overall, I think he's probably the best pick. He would not overshadow Trump. Do I think he has all the right answers on policy? No, I don't. But I also think it's actually fairly likely Scott gets picked. So if I want to have somebody all the way on the top, I'm going to put Tim Scott in the A tier. And last, we've got Vivek Ramaswamy. Now this is kind of the younger version of Trump, and that does have some strength. But similar to Carrie Lake and Marjorie Taylor Greene, I think there would be too much Trump on the ticket with Ramaswamy. That would be an out-of-the-box pick, kind of a dark horse candidate, but because I don't think this is the last we've heard of Ramaswamy. He's not even 40. Plus he's from Ohio. He could run for the Senate or for governor, but maybe he ends up being picked as the running mate. I just see it as kind of a Trump overload that would burn out the electorate. So for that reason, I'm going to put him borderline CD. We'll put him in the high D tier. So that's all of them. Only one person in the A tier, one in the F, and actually only one in the B. I wanted to try to do this as fairly as I could. I didn't want to have nobody in the A or the F tier. So this is what I came up with. Again, this is not what I want to see happen or what I like or what I don't like. Some of it might be, some of it might not be, but I tried to combine the likelihood they would be picked along with how well they would help or hurt the likely nominee of Trump. So you could probably tweak some of these, some of them are borderline, and you're going to have your own reasons for your own picks. It's all about what you want to emphasize. This is what I settled on, so let me know in the comments. Who do you think is going to be the VP pick for Trump? Is it going to be one of these candidates or somebody completely off the board? Do you think the ticket should be balanced, or do you think there should be another Trump-style candidate as his running mate? And what do you think of these tiers? Who would be your best or your worst picks? Let me know down below. On your way out, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. Join if you'd like to support the channel. Hit the bell for notifications. Thank you for watching, and I will see you on the next video.